Hello my friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with yet another video using the Simon Says stamp, Bold Leaves background stamp. Are y'all sick of videos using this set yet? I've been enjoying it, and I had mentioned in a previous video, I was like, ooh, this background would work really well for a wedding card. And then I had some of you asking to show that, and I was like, why not? You know? Like, I'm on a roll. Let's just keep going. So, as is tradition, I have my MISTI. I got my MISTI sticky grid just to hold the cardstock. Got the stamp on the lid of the MISTI. I use my anti-static powder tool. Inked up stamp with clear embossing ink. I'm going to stamp it onto this smooth white cardstock. And then I'm going to use the Tonic Nuvo Glitter Noir embossing powder that I have shown in many videos that I love. And in case you didn't watch the other videos and hear me rant, this is not like your typical black embossing powder. Black embossing powder is, Satan's dandruff, the devil, all the things. Any bad descriptor, I don't like black embossing powder. Although I will say, if I'm stamping on vellum, vellum is the only time I like black embossing powder, and you can test this out if you've never done it. But if you stamp with black and emboss with clear on vellum, it's very dull. It doesn't look very nice. That's like the only time that I will pull out my black embossing powder. It works great on vellum. I think it's because vellum has a very, very smooth finish, so there's nowhere for the embossing powder to cling to. Anyway, that's the side rant. Back to the cards. So I did the one background with that black glitter embossing powder. That's beautiful. And then, of course, my brain kept going, and it was like, what about gold? So I'm going to use, for the second background, I'm going to use gold enchantment embossing powder, which at the moment I think is sold out. This one's a little different. It is gold with a glitter, but it's different than the black. Like with the black glitter embossing powder, like you can really see the glitter. With this gold enchantment, it doesn't really show the glitter so much as the glitter kind of creates a texture. It's really hard to explain. When you see it in real life, it kind of makes sense. And I don't know what it is. I actually like the texture. Actually, no, wait, I lied. If you look really closely, you can actually see the glitter. But again, it creates more of a textured effect. It's weird. I haven't used this in a really long time, and I had forgot that until this video. And I was like, oh yeah. And I like it. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because it's something just slightly different, but you could totally just use regular gold embossing powder. Either one looks beautiful. So I have my backgrounds. For my main sentiment, I'm using Simon's Picnic Floral Sentiments. This one came out recently. I like the set because you get a good mix of sentiments in it, and there's a few cute little like floral and leaf images. But I just chose the Sending Love sentiment because these cards I kind of kept them open-ended again. You could use them as a like wedding card or anniversary or thank you, just because, you're just sending love. It works for anything. So I used black cardstock, anti-static powder, inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink, and then I used that gold enchantment embossing powder again, because why not? It works. It works for sentiments. It works for all the things. It just gives it that different sort of look, and I like it. I'm here for it. So after I had melted the embossing powder on the sentiments, I die cut them with some circle wafer dies. I also die cut some of Simon's matte gold cardstock and some vellum with different sizes of the circles. And then I had pulled out the etched MEADOW flower and leaves die set. I used this on a previous video as well. And I really like the two little leaf sprigs in the set. They're so dainty and pretty. It's funny. I never really thought about that until I pulled it out, for a recent video. And then I was like, I really like these there's a little floral, sprig in there as well, but I've just been using the leaves. So I have all my die cuts ready. So I cut down both of these backgrounds to smaller than my A2 card fronts. These ended up being 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I'd also cut down some black cardstock to slightly larger and some more of that matte gold cardstock. With the matte gold cardstock, heck, any cardstock, specialty cardstock, etc., you can die cut from the center of it or cut out the center of it if you're using a different paper trimmer. Obviously with the guillotine trimmers, that's not possible, but I've shown in videos way back in the day. I used to use my little Fiskars trimmer and I would cut out, or I would die cut from the centers with a rectangle. So you're not, wasting the good cardstock. I'm just mentioning that because that's something I used to do a lot. I don't do it as much anymore, but the thought is still there. And it kind of bugged me that I didn't. So anyway, I matted the black embossed background with the gold and the gold with the black, and then the circles that I had die cut, I purposely added the vellum. It just tones down the gold a little bit. Plus it gives it that little extra something. And to adhere the vellum to the gold piece, I'm using a bit of Simon's Dot Runner adhesive, only because if you use liquid adhesive on vellum, a lot of times it will cause the vellum to curl, which, depending on what I'm making and just all the different reasons, sometimes that doesn't bug me. But I didn't want it to curl up at all on this. I wanted it to just stay smooth and flat, hence the dot adhesive. So I adhered the vellum circle to the gold circle with that, and then just stuck this into place on my background. So I've got these adhered in place, and then I'm going to put on this background, I'm going to use the gold leaves that I had die cut. So I'm going to kind of arrange them like coming out from this sentiment basically. And rather than sit and fiddle with adhering them into place, it was just easier. It's like, oh, I'll just use some of my washi tape. Tape down, good to go. Because you're not going to be able to see that once I adhere the actual sentiment on top of this. So I tape that down, and then I'm going to pop the sentiment on top of that with thin foam squares. So it just gives it that little bit of dimension and gives it that little extra something. So I'm just going to pop little foam squares around the perimeter of this. And normally I would just leave it. Like, I don't mind that the sprigs are not adhered at the top, but then I started thinking, and I was like, I should add a little bit of adhesive to those, just because it would be the worst if, you mail it to someone and they go to, pull the card out of the envelope and those catch and possibly tear because they are little fine little die cuts. So better to be safe than sorry. So I just took some of those little foam squares and cut them in half, and then just used my tweezers to tuck them under some of the leaves so that they're adhered into place, but then they also have a little bit of dimension because, again, why not, So pop that into place, and then I did the exact same thing with the other card front. I just used black cardstock die cuts with those leaf sprigs. So same process, same everything. So once I've got my card fronts all assembled, I'm going to do what I've been doing in the last several videos, stamp the inside of the card with this bold leaves background stamp. This time I pulled out Simon's, is it Golden Locks? I always want to call it Goldilocks, but it's not. It's Golden Locks, and I've shown this in many videos. This is one of Simon's like OG ink pads, and I love it because when it dries, it is kind of a gold color without me having to use pigment ink. I love gold pigment ink, but again, time and place, and pigment inks take longer, need to be heat set. Plus, I don't usually like using like a metallic pigment ink on the inside of cards. It's fine for a sentiment, but like to cover the entire inside like I am with this with a big background stamp, I don't like using metallic inks, specific, not necessarily pigment inks, but metallic inks, because that's really hard to write over. Your pen catches, and anyway. So Golden Locks ink for the win. It's a perfect color. It gives me my pattern. It still makes it so I can write over it with a pen. It'll be legible, all the things. So I stamped those insides with that. And then I took a sentiment from another current favorite that I've shown in many videos, the Extra Talkative stamp set. And I'm going to stamp that one with VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. And this sentiment just says, "This card is full of hugs." So again, these could be wedding cards. They could be thank you cards, like just any occasion. I like doing that sometimes, because then it's like, ooh, if I need something for a specific occasion, if I have cards like this already made, it's like, okay, good. I like making specific for specific things, but it's also nice to have ones on hand that aren't specific and can apply to different things. So that's what these are going to be for. So after I'd stamped the insides, I adhered the card fronts to the card bases. These are top folding A2 cards, and I'm going to pair these with some of Simon's metallic gold envelopes, and that finished them off. So I've got my gold, white, and black fix, and I will have a link to that playlist at the end of this video, because some of you are very aware, but if you're not, I have a thing for black. The black, white, and gold color combo. Love it. I've done a ton of videos with cards made using these colors because they're classy. I love it. I love it. So anyway, I'll have a link to that. I'll have a link below to all the supplies I use so I can check them out. Normally I say I will have a link to my blog post. I will in the next day or so, depending. Having massive tech issues with my blog right now. Life is great. Life's great. But all the info will be in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribing. I very much appreciate all of you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.